One day I'm doing the dishes, listening to Paul Simon's Graceland album, when the lyrics, my traveling companion is 9 years old. He is the child of my first marriage. Speak to me. These lyrics speak to me in this subliminal manner that I cannot describe, only feel. And my daughter, Scarlett, at the time was 9 years old. She was a child of a union that dissolved. And I connect with people I love through song lyrics. And it just made perfect poetry to go out and live that line. I had to go to Graceland. So I left the dishes and I excitedly knocked at her door. She said, come in. And her room was full of posters of kittens and puppies and plants. And she was sitting in the bed with her iPad and she was building something on Minecraft. And I said, Scarlett, let's go to Graceland. And Scarlett said, what's that? And I said, well, it's where Elvis lived. Now, she knows who Elvis was because I played her everything. I played her Fania All-Stars, I played her country, I played her jazz, classical, reggae. I played her everything. And in fact, when she turned 5, I didn't give her a Barbie doll. I gave her an Elvis doll. Pretty Elvis, too, not fat Elvis. And she took that doll and she destroyed it, took it apart, and then threw it out the window. And something like that was happening with this idea of going to Graceland. So I went in damage control, and I said, Scarlett, in Graceland, there's this room. It's got all these stuffed animals, and Elvis used to play music there. It's called the Jungle Room. And she goes, wow, a jungle room. Why don't we just go to the Bronx, Dad? They have a whole zoo. So I closed the door and just let it be, and I plotted. And I decided that when she was with me, because I shared custody of her, when she was with me, I was just gonna play the Graceland album. That's it, it was gonna be the Graceland album. When we will wake up to have pizza for breakfast, it was gonna be the Graceland album. When we came back from Central Park or the museum, and we were gonna have pizza for lunch, it was gonna be the Graceland album. When we had pizza for dinner, in the background, it was gonna be the Graceland album. It's gonna be Graceland, 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 Graceland. She was gonna know every song, every lyric, every stanza, every motif, every refrain, every melody. The Graceland album was gonna seep into her DNA. And that's what I did. And then one day, she's opening her laptop to watch this YouTube video of this Minecraft wizard called Stampy that she was really into. And as she's doing this, I hear her sing to herself, she's a rich girl, and she don't try to hide it. I said, I know, that's from the Graceland album. It's not Graceland, but that's from the Graceland album. So it's working. But I decided not to ask her, just leave some time go by. And a few hours passed, and she was doing this project for her 4th grade class. I think it was the map of Europe or something. And I say, Scarlett, let's go to Graceland. And she goes, why do you want to go to Graceland so bad? I said, I think there's something there that's going to speak to me in some spiritual way, and I want to go, and I want to go with you. And she's not really into it. I can see how her shoulders kind of dropped, and for some reason, I said, you know what, Scarlett? It's very American. And I think she put 2 and 2 together. She goes, is this a road trip, Dad? Because you don't drive. I said, yes, Scarlett, we're New Yorkers, we take cabs, but we can take a cab from the hotel to Graceland. And she goes, no, Dad, in the song, they're driving. I said, nowhere in the song does it say they're driving, they're traveling. She goes, no, Dad, they're driving, because they're looking at the scenery, so he has to be driving. I said, well, they could be on a train. She goes, no, they're on a highway. The song says they're on a highway. And I said, no, Scarlett, they're trains that go parallel to the highway. And then all of a sudden I realized, you don't want to go to Graceland. And she doesn't want to say no. So she just cowers a little and smiles a little. I said, fine. Where would you rather go? She says, Paris. So we go to Paris. What happened with that day when I was doing the dishes and the song lyric, my traveling companion is 9 years old, was that it took me back to the past. It took me back to when I was a teenager, and these musicians and these songs would speak to me in more powerful ways than my parents or any teacher could. I remember when I first heard Springsteen sing, "You ain't a beauty, but hey, you're all right." This gave me hope. Because if the boss can get away with such a terrible pickup line, I can do better, man. It took me back to listening to Héctor Lavoe saying, "Yo soy la fama, y si tú quieres aprender, levántate de la cama." It's like, if you want something, you gotta work, man. You gotta get out of bed, man. You gotta chase it. It took me back to listening to Roy Orbison in the dark when you're 16 and full of self-pity and excitement all at the same time. In fact, my daughter is connected to this kind of music that I love. In better days, in better times, her mother and I would play Scrabble, listening to Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder Review, the live album, which later became the Desire album, studio. But it wasn't so much Dylan that captured us, but the fiddle player. Oh, the fiddle player. And her mother and I looked up who it was in the liner notes, and there it was, Scarlett Rivera, Latina. That's the baby's name. And I think my daughter kind of understood this, because when I would play Dylan, she didn't exactly like it. You can see how Scarlett would cringe at this terrible voice, you know? But she somehow knew that her name was tied to this guy, so she always put up with him. But Graceland, she wanted none of it. So I asked some of my friends for advice. I said, I want to take my 9-year-old, to Graceland. And they said, why don't you just bribe her? I thought that was brilliant. Why didn't I think of this? So I decided to bribe her without her knowing I was bribing her. So what I did was, my birthday falls in August, which is perfect because that's our vacation days. So when she was with me, I would play the Graceland album and leave a hint. I'll say, you know what I want for my birthday? And I would put on the Graceland album. Another time I would say, wow, I can't wait for my birthday. And I would put on the Graceland album. And I never had the courage to look back and see her face because I knew she was rolling her eyes. So one day I'm on the sofa and I'm grading essays, and Scarlett sits next to me and she has her iPad with her. And what she had done is that she had Googled all the lyrics to the Graceland album, and she showed me, she goes, Dad, why don't we do this for your birthday? And it was the line, the bodegas and the lights on Upper Broadway. She goes, why don't we go do that? Why don't we go see the bodegas and the lights on Upper Broadway? It's in the album, Dad, so we can be doing something from the album. And I said, yes, I know, that's the song you like, Diamonds in the Soles of Her Shoes. What about Graceland? And, her shoulders cower and she half smiles. She doesn't want to disappoint me, but I can see that she doesn't really want to go. So I say, fine. Where would you rather go for my birthday? She says, Venice. So we went to Venice. Went to Florence, too. We're there. Might as well, right? 9 came and went, blink of an eye. 10, 11. By 12, Scarlett was listening to her own music. She always had her ear pods on, her iPhone, whatever she's doing, she was listening to music. So I would basically play whatever I wanted. And sometimes she actually would make fun of my music. Like, for example, when I first played Neil Young, she said she laid on the couch and she had her head dangling. She goes, helpless, helpless, help. She said that Neil Young sounded like he was singing from his deathbed. Only once did she ask, who's this, Dad? Who's this? And I got really excited because I said, Earth, Wind, and Fire, you like them? And she went, so. So I pretty much gave it up. And then one day, something magical happened. And I do not know why, because I wasn't listening to Paul Simon. I was actually listening to George Harrison. And I realized that Scarlett was 12, but that the meter, the syllables of those lyrics were still intact. My traveling companion is 12 years old. She's that still works. The syllables are correct. And not only that, but Scarlett's now 12, and music is speaking to her the way that it spoke to me back then and continues to. So maybe she'll understand. So I thought, you know what? Let me go for it. My traveling companion is 12 years old. So I knocked at her door. She said, come in. And her room is now full of posters of Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande. And she was doing a watercolor. And I said, Scarlett, let's go to Graceland. And her face just dropped, like, this again? I thought this had died with the Disney Channel that I no longer watch. And I think she saw my expression, my panic or my disappointment, my sadness, whatever it was that she saw, because then her expression changed, and it became very gentle. And she said, Dad, all things must pass. All things must pass away. And I got really happy because that's a George Harrison line. And I don't know if that what was playing, but she had always been listening. And more importantly, she was speaking my language. So I closed the door because there was hope. Scarlett is now 14, going on 15. And we also live in Ithaca, New York, because I teach at Cornell University. And you have to take a bus to go from the campus to the downtown where our apartment is. And one day, about a month or so, 2 months ago, I'm on the bus, and I saw my daughter in the street. And she was with 2 other friends, and they were laughing up a storm, and they were giggling and talking, being girls, being teenagers, as it should be. And it was freezing. There was smoke coming out of their mouths like dragons, but they didn't care. And I felt very happy for her. But at the same time, I couldn't help but to feel this painful nostalgia of when it was just me and her. And I realized that the Graceland thing was also telling me that, we lose them. As soon as they are born, we start losing them. And first the onesies go, then the diapers go, then preschool's over, then they lose their teeth. You try to save the teeth, don't know for what. They decompose, they just become stains. And then grammar school's over, middle school's over. By high school, the child is gone. And Graceland was me wanting to live out this rock lyric that meant a lot to me before I completely lost her. All my friends say, don't worry, kids come back. She'll come back. You guys will be pals again, she'll come back. And, I know this. And I'm hoping that some years down the road, that maybe these lyrics will speak to her the way they speak to me, or the way they spoke to me and continue to. And maybe one day, in the future, the phone will ring, and it will be Scarlett. She'll say, Dad, I have reason to believe we will both be received in Graceland. And you know what? Even though the lyric will be completely ruined, the syllables, my traveling companion is 34 years old. It doesn't work, It's complete. I'll say, yeah, let's go. Why not? Let's go. And I'll go to Graceland with my daughter. Maybe we'll see the ghost of Elvis. Who knows? It could happen, right? Good night.